Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. Okay, I got a question for you. There's Diana Ross, and there's 5 other men on the cover of this magazine. There's Berry Gordy, Michael Jackson, Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, and Marvin Gaye. Okay, so here's my question. Out of those 5 men, how many of them have been inside of Diana Ross's vagina? So the story with Smokey Robinson is that they say officially that they never had sex. They say, oh, they're friends. So they say officially from the stories and stuff is that no, not really. That's kind of like what they say. But yeah, my story says that Smokey Robinson is actually the father of Michael Jackson, and Diana Ross is actually the mother of Michael Jackson. So right there, if that's true, Smokey Robinson was inside of Diana Ross's vagina when he got her pregnant. Michael Jackson was inside of Diana Ross's vagina when he was being born. So those two were inside of her vagina. Berry Gordy had a child with Diana Ross. He was with her for a long time in a relationship, so we know that he was. Now, Marvin Gaye, I actually don't know enough about their relationship. From what I've ever seen to them together, they were extremely affectionate towards each other. But I don't know if like Marvin Gaye was married all that time and stuff. I don't know. But if he wasn't married, yeah, I would assume that those times when they're all that time, I would assume. I'm not sure about that though. Then the other one would be Stevie Wonder. He's the odd man out, right? Everybody got it. Everybody a piece, but Stevie, poor Stevie, little Stevie. But Stevie Wonder in reality is one of those things, I wonder if any point in his life, so it's like it'd be a good trivia question, how many of these men been inside Diana Ross's vagina? Because people might think Michael Jackson had been in a sexual way, but it's like, no, it would be, yeah, he was inside of her, but it was when he was being born through he never had sex with her. He's actually her child and shit. So, yeah, it's hilarious and stuff. So, the thing I'm saying, one of the biggest things is like, okay, like just look at this picture right here. Okay, Michael Jackson's dead. The only other person there that's dead is Marvin Gaye, but that's because he's shot dead by his own father. I believe that's the story with him. Okay, so all of those other people are actually still alive. But the key thing that's super important about these people being alive is this is the actual technicalities of how my story is created. Is that Berry Gordy is in a record studio called Brunswick Record Studio. Now, here's just a quick thing. I'm going to just tell you this, and this is fact. You can go check it up, and I could show you the evidence. But why? When you could just give me this, give me the benefit of the doubt if you haven't seen any of my stuff. Give me the benefit of the doubt that what I'm telling you here is fact, okay? Berry Gordy's in Brunswick Record Studio because he's a songwriter working for Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson is under the Brunswick record label. So he's in that Brunswick studio one day. And Smokey Robinson comes in with his band, which I believed is actually still named the Matadors at that time, which is to be later known as the Miracles. Smokey Robinson comes in at Brunswick. At this time, Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy have never met. Berry Gordy has no idea who's Smokey Robinson, but Smokey Robinson actually knows Berry Gordy's name because he is a songwriter writing songs for Jackie Wilson. And at that time, Smokey Robinson's favorite artist is Jackie Wilson, and Smokey Robinson is writing songs, so he's studying him, and he sees that the guy writing songs for Jackie Wilson is named Berry Gordy. So he knows this. Okay, that's the only thing about them that there's any connection, is that Smokey Robinson actually knows the guy that's writing Jackie Wilson's song is named Berry Gordy, but he's never met him, doesn't know anything about him. Diana Ross lives on the same street as Smokey Robinson. She's actually best friends with his niece, and she stays over at Smokey Robinson's house, like sleeps in his house too. She's not just friends, she sleeps in the house. Where like Claudette Rogers, who ends up becoming Claudette Robinson, Smokey Robinson's wife, she's around at that time, but is she staying in the house at the time? I don't know if her relationship is where, I don't know if she's friends with like the niece, okay? Claudette's relationship is based upon the band, from what I understand. That's actually how her relationship relationship developed because she had an older brother who was friends with Smokey. So I don't think that Claudette is ever staying the night in that house. But I've got Diana Ross specifying because she just lives a few doors down and she's best friends with a family member of Smokey Robinson who lives in that house also. So Diana Ross is sleeping in that same house as Smokey Robinson at this time. These are all documented facts. Okay, so what happens is Smokey Robinson goes in for the audition at the Brunswick studio. He performs a few songs, but they turn him down. And right at that time in his life, he's getting close to 18, but he's not actually 18 at that time, but close. So Berry Gordy, in his head, he's there as a songwriter, but in his head, we understand that he's got visions of building a record company, which inevitably becomes known as Motown. And now, this meeting between them is in August of 1957. I know Tamla is established in January of 1959, and then Motown, I think it's in 60, but it could technically be 61. I'd have to recheck it. It's just one of those things. See, like that, I'm not positive on that date, that's why I say, but it's after, where I know Tamla is in January of 59. So the actual first establishment of the first record company that comes to be known as Motown, because it's Tamla Motown. So Tamla's not established till January of 1959. That's after Michael Jackson's birth. Okay, so these guys meet in August of 1957. And Tamla gets established in January of 59. So in the middle of that process right there, from when they meet until Tamla gets established, you know what? It's a fact of history. One thing that occurred during that exact moment in history was Michael Jackson was conceived and born. During that exact moment, from the time where Smokey Robinson meets Berry Gordy to the time when they first established Tamla together, because that's what a lot of people don't know too, is that it was the meeting of Smokey and Berry, because Berry was still a songwriter at Brunswick Studio when he meets Smokey Robinson. Berry Gordy had not taken the first step into establishing his own record company at that time because he wasn't going to build a record company around himself. That's why I'm saying when Smokey came in, Berry saw that this is my opportunity to find a young artist that I can use to build my record label around. That's what he was looking for, and there it walked in. It was turned down by the Brunswick guy. So Berry Gordy walks out of the studio and goes after Smokey on his own. And Berry Gordy goes up to Smokey and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you. And like Smokey, from the story they tell us, Smokey's like, yeah, who are you? Who are you? Okay. And Berry Gordy laughs. This is like the way they tell the story. He goes and he says, hi, I'm Berry Gordy. And Smokey's like, you're Berry Gordy? You're the guy who writes the songs for Jackie Wilson? So he knew who he was when he said his name. And he says, yeah, I'm Berry Gordy. And then so he's like, oh, okay. So they right there, Smokey Robinson already respected him. And then Berry Gordy respected him. That's why he chased after him. He wanted and then he ends up being 17. That's what Berry Gordy wants. He needs an adult, 18 years old. So that's what they're doing. He finds the kid. So right at that moment when they meet and they build a relationship, that's the actual technical beginning of Motown. That's actually, without that meeting occurring, who knows what Motown actually ever is become. We don't know. If Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy don't meet, we don't know. We actually have no idea what Motown, and these are the hard facts. Okay. And that's one of the things that people don't understand is that it's Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson. It was because they met and it was the joining of those two forces, they built Motown. That's actually how it all started. So what's happening in that time, just think about the reality in real life. In that time in the reality, Diana Ross she's almost 14 years old. She's late in her 13, like 8 months, 9 months, something like that. And in her life, she's already got a crush on Smokey Robinson because he's in a band. She's at that age, you know. She's building. She doesn't just have a fond friendship with Smokey Robinson. Smokey Robinson is the older guy right down the street that she is building up this fantasy love affair for, and that's her first love in her mind. She's building up this love. So what happens is that Smokey then, he's actually involved with Claudette at that time, technically. But like I said, she's not staying in the house like Diana is. And Diana just lives a few doors down. So for them to sneak out at night and do stuff, I mean, wouldn't have been very difficult. It's extremely, that's what they would have been doing. So Michael Jackson is conceived, Michael Jackson's born August 29th of 1958. Okay, so Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy meet in August of 1957. So basically 1 year after the meeting of these two guys, 1 year after that, Michael Jackson's born. Okay? And so that means that Michael Jackson was conceived just a few months after that encounter. These are just hard facts. There's no dispute about it. Michael Jackson is conceived basically just a few months, within a few months after these two guys meet in the real world. In the real world, when Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson meet, Michael Jackson's conceived just a few months after that. Okay, so Smokey Robinson, when he goes back into his neighborhood, who's right there in the neighborhood with him? It's Diana Ross. And not only is she in the neighborhood with him, I've got her on video saying that Smokey Robinson was her first real love, and I've got her in video saying that she was staying the night in Smokey Robinson's house all the time. Okay? These are real facts that line up exactly with the real dates of what's going on. So then, what I say that happens is that when it came out that Diana's pregnant, when Berry Gordy gets wind that she's pregnant, and I have a video of Diana Ross saying that she met Berry Gordy at Smokey Robinson's house before Motown had happened. So I have a video of that too, documenting that Diana Ross had an encounter with Berry Gordy before the Motown stuff, which she would have had some encounter, because what I'm saying is that Berry Gordy is the one that orchestrates the plan for Diana Ross to get rid of her child. And she ends up, I say that Berry Gordy has connections to Joseph Jackson. I have evidence to back this up with stuff. You'd have to go and I'd have to show you more and talk, but I'm not going to get into all that right now. But they have connections. That's my thing, is that Berry Gordy and Joe Jackson are actually old friends, that they have an older friendship. And so when it came out, think about the reality. If you want to put if Berry Gordy, he's just a guy trying to figure things out in the world, right? So now he has an issue that his main artist, Smokey Robinson, that he's going to attempt to try and build his company around. Now he's got the visions running in his head. By the time he finds out that Diana Ross is pregnant, Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson have been working together, and now Berry Gordy sees, he's got the visions in his head. He's not just going to let that go. And then boom, he finds out that there's this young girl who's only 14 years old, who lives right in the neighborhood, right down the street from his guy, the guy that he's building his company around, Smokey Robinson. There's this girl who's gotten pregnant by Smokey, and Smokey's telling him, yeah, it's me. I'm the father. This is Diana. She lives right down the street. This is no joke. This happened, So Berry had to deal with that situation. So my understanding of what occurred is that Berry Gordy and Joseph Jackson have an older relationship. So think about the reality. When Berry Gordy's got to deal with that at that moment, he's trying to figure out, well, how do I deal with this? My guy that I'm building the company around has just gotten a 14-year-old girl pregnant that's right in the neighborhood. Berry Gordy, when you understand anything about how Motown is built and how it's designed, one of the key, most paramount things and issues with him is image. Image is just like total importance to him. And they had to respect the fans. They had to put out an image of class and elegance and be respectful. They trained them very well to be all of that stuff. So right off the bat, just ask yourself a question. Is there any chance in the world that Berry Gordy would have taken a chance at building his one chance to start at building his own record company? Is he going to build his record company under a musician who has a child from a 14-year-old girl in the neighborhood? That's scandalous. It's impossible that Berry Gordy at that moment would have said, okay, let's just take a chance and that she won't say anything. There's no way Berry Gordy would have taken that chance. But now the chance that he did take was he had to come up with the solution. Remember, they haven't made Motown yet. They're not making money. They're trying to figure it out. And when you're trying to figure it out, that's how these things happen in the real world. It's because they're trying to figure it out. So Berry Gordy says, hey, you know what? I know this guy named Joe Jackson. And guess what? He's got a family with a bunch of kids in it. He's married, he's a hardworking guy, he's got a bunch of kids, and he would say, I know he used to play guitar, so he's like a musician, you know? And so that could be a good house for Berry Gordy's thinking, I could put the kid in the house, the kid's gonna have a lot of other children to play with, you know? Joseph was a musician. He's probably going to have some music in the household. Seems like a pretty good household and a good fit for that kid, for Berry Gordy, when he's thinking of a place like maybe I can give this kid to them. And the other thing is that the child before Michael, you have the Brandon and the Marlon. Okay, so the Brandon kid passes away. So after that, the Jacksons don't have another child. The next child that comes into the house is Michael. It's after that. It's directly after that occurrence happens. Catherine doesn't get pregnant until, so Catherine doesn't get pregnant until the Michael comes in the house. Because she was traumatized, and so she's already got a lot of kids, and then she just went through a severe trauma too. So not only does she go through the severe trauma, but they would have had another child in the house, which is perfect reason for them to be welcoming of another child coming in the house, because they would have had a child. So how could they not say, oh, we don't want another kid, we can't handle another kid, when they already had another kid? The kid died, so they already were ready to deal with that. But God took that kid, the kid ended up dying. So they were prepared. But so now when Berry Gordy gives them the opportunity to, hey, I need you to take this kid. When the kid's born, we need you to take him, and it's going to be your kid. So they did it right when Michael was born. They freaking just gave him to the Jacksons. It's your kid. Get your family doctor to fake a birth certificate if they went that far, exactly, because that's all they would have had to done to make it official. No adoption, just fake the birth certificate. Get a doctor to say that this is your baby. Make the birth certificate. That's it. It's done. If they did that, it's all done. Then what they do is Berry Gordy starts sending them like a little check every month, and then he knows that Joseph's got a big family. He knows he can use a little extra money, so it's not like where he's thinking like, well, I wonder if the guy, he's in his head, I'm sure he's thinking, oh, I know this guy will take the kid too, because he's already got all these kids, and all I got to do is give him some extra money. That's a perfect fit. See how it was a perfect fit for Michael to go to that house on everybody's level. And see, the other thing is, the kid's at a state too. Close by. Gary, Indiana is only like 200 miles away from Detroit. Like 200 miles. That's not very far. But it's out of the state. Technically, it's not in the same state. It's kind of way over there. So they were able to get it across the state, which breaks it all up, because you've got Michael being born in Gary, Indiana, where Diana and Smokey and Berry are from Detroit. So you separated that, and that's how it got separated. So that's the world in which Michael Jackson was born into. And then he had to deal with the reality of that Joseph is what he is, that Michael was given to those people. He was never a Jackson, so that's the world that Michael was born into. So Joseph treating him the way he treated whatever happened, but as soon as Michael Jackson shows talent, and so that's the other thing in the real life situation. What happened in the real world is that when Michael Jackson does go into the Jackson's household, so when Michael Jackson does go into the Jackson household, Joseph on his own, at that time in history, Joseph had been working at the steel mills. But at that time, when Michael comes into the household, Joseph stops working at the steel mill, and Joseph reforms his band, the Falcons, and Joseph makes an attempt at a music career exactly at that time when Michael comes into the house. So is that Joseph just saying, you know what, I'm getting late in my life, here's one more shot, let me just give it one more shot? Is that what happened, where he's got all this big family and he decided to take one more shot? Or did he just get a kid from a guy named Berry Gordy, who he knows who Berry Gordy is? Berry Gordy's a songwriter. He is established, and Berry Gordy's trying to establish a record company. And so what does he do when Joseph Jackson gets Michael Jackson? When Joe Jackson gets Michael, the kid, from Berry Gordy, Joseph Jackson, in the real history of the real life, he starts a band again. He starts the Falcons at that time. That's when he starts it up. Why does that occur? Because he's just gotten Michael from Berry Gordy. Joseph's trying to make it. That's the actual other thing that's the most proof that Joseph Jackson is not a stage father. Everybody calls the Jackson, oh, it's a Jackson family. They're all so talented. Joseph Jackson was not training his kids to be artists at that time, because at the moment when Joseph Jackson, and it shows the other thing, that Joseph did not have trust in his kids. He had seen them. He knew they didn't have any talent. He was not trusting of any of their ability, none of their talent, none. But because what the proof is that Joseph reformed a band. He's the one that went out and tried to, when he got this connection, he went out and trusted in his own ability, which that's the Joseph Jackson that we all know. And the dates and everything lines up perfectly aligned with what I'm saying. Joseph Jackson goes and makes his band. Does not make it because Berry Gordy's not just handing out contracts, and Joseph Jackson doesn't want to ruin the connection. He does have a connection. And so Joseph Jackson, when he realized that Berry Gordy turned him down, Joseph Jackson realized that the kids are what I need to start doing. So in my story, I say that Joseph at that time started training Tito how to play the guitar. Joseph made the choice that Joseph started training him, because in the movie they say that Tito was secretly playing the guitar, but actually secretly playing it to the point where he was actually learning how to play. Now, in the reality of the person of Joseph Jackson, the man he was, the one thing in his house that's like his own private possession, okay? He would have had only one. You're in that house with all of those kids. You work hard. Everything that he does, like he gives the money and it goes all to them. Think about the reality in the house of Joseph Jackson. What is one thing in that house that was his possession that he could have held and admired and held with beauty and held it and said, this is mine. This is mine. You know what that would have been? His guitar. Now, you're going to tell me that one of these kids would have dared to ever pick up that guitar? See, in a guitar, you leave these fingerprints. It's not like something like, if somebody played your guitar, like being the person of Joe Jackson, who he was, he would have known exactly what that guitar looked like. And if he would have picked it up to play it, and if there's fingerprints, Tito would have not known to wipe off the fingerprints off of the guitar. It wouldn't have had to take him to the time where Tito broke the string on the guitar. And that's the story that they tell. I heard Jermaine just telling it the other day. That's the story that they still tell, that that's how it all happened. That can't be the story of how it happened, because what they're saying is that Joseph was not able to recognize that there was fingerprints and somebody that had been playing his guitar that maybe was slightly out of tune. Any little difference, he would have known. I guarantee you, there would have been fingerprints on the guitar. He would have seen. It's one of those things like, there's a movie called The Mummy, and then the one guy, he put like this gold paint on the woman, so if any man touched her, he instantly would know if anybody touched her. That's how it would have been with the guitar. When you own the guitar, Joseph would have kept it clean. Any fingerprint on that guitar, he would have instantly know somebody touched his guitar. And that would have been the end of that, because Joseph wasn't in the business of his kids touching his one possession that he actually had. So Joseph actually it proves that Joseph had to be training Tito to play the guitar. And the timing of that fits in line perfectly, where Joseph went out on the road, did not succeed, because Berry Gordy's still in the early development of Motown at that time too. So he's not just handing out record contracts, he's still trying to figure out on his own. Berry Gordy, or Joseph Jackson, doesn't want to ruin the relationship with Berry Gordy. He's got the kid. He is getting a monthly stipend of cash from him, So what Joseph does, he starts looking for his options. And where does his options go? It goes to his children, but he knows his children can't sing, so he doesn't start training them how to sing. He starts training them how to dance and play instruments, because at this time, Michael has not shown any musical talent and creative ability at this time, because he's still too young. So Joseph puts his attentions into Tito and starts having the kids dance because they don't have any singing ability. But then as soon as Michael Jackson at 5 years old shows that he had real singing ability, remember, Joseph Jackson, it proves he's not a stage father. He was not running his other kids out building a band with them. Not until he was trying to build it, they didn't have the talent. It wasn't until the process when you see the development of how I'm saying how it developed. That's how it developed. So as soon as Michael shows talent, this is the kid that has the connection to Berry Gordy. Okay? So now when this kid has the talent, what does Joseph instantly do? He builds a band around that kid as the star singer. You know, that kid's the star. That kid's the star. That's where Joseph ends up developing. Boom, this is our band, because Joseph's intention is to go right back to Motown. And I could show you all the records and all the stuff, is that Joseph actually, as soon as they started developing that band and getting on the road, Joseph was making contact with Motown. He was trying to contact Motown, but still at that time, Berry Gordy, the other thing, he's like, I'm not giving out record contracts to kids. Hell no. But the thing about it, what happened was Joe forced it, because the reality was the kid had real talent. Joe had something. Joe had something. Not only did he have something, he knew how to work it now. Now he knew what to do. Now that he had a kid that could sing and was dancing, he knew exactly, this is what we're going to do. You other kids, we got Tito's going to play an instrument. I don't know when Jermaine started picking up the bass. I don't know exactly when he started, because Jermaine does play bass. You know, he ends up being a bass player. So they actually have two real musicians out of the guy. Jermaine and Tito actually are musicians. There's a guitar player and a bass player, you know. But when they first would have started signing to Motown, those guys would not have been playing instruments on the records. They would have been using the house band. They would have been playing live and stuff like that. But they're not the musicians on the records. They're not even, you know, doing that stuff when they first would have signed. All of this stuff. So this is the whole history of actually who these guys are and what they did in real life. And then, so when Michael comes back to Motown, he doesn't know that he's been abandoned. His whole life, he thinks he's a Jackson. He's not told by, you know, Joseph has told him, "Man, you're joking. You're not my kid. Look at your nose." I mean, there's that stuff and stuff. But Michael at that time thinks he's just being mean. He doesn't actually know, like, oh, shit. Oh, you were really, I wasn't your kid, you know? But Michael thinks he's a Jackson the whole time, you know, and all the time when they're building the band, all that time. But so when they, then they go to Motown. They actually get there. They start encountering Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson, and all that stuff happens. And then as soon as they actually sign with Motown, when that occurs, the Jacksons they move to Los Angeles, but they don't move to Los Angeles and purchase a house. They moved to Los Angeles and they moved into the house that Diana Ross has just purchased for herself. Her first house. She has just purchased her first home. And what happens after she purchases her first home? This is all documented facts. What happens now she had bought a house in Detroit that her parents had lived in, but her first real house in Beverly Hills, that's her home. Her first real home that she purchased in Beverly Hills. What happens right after she does that? The Jacksons move in. So at that time, obviously, she informs Michael that she's his real mother. And then Michael Jackson, at that time, now he's got to deal with, think about the realities. He's just becoming a child star, so he's having to deal with all of the fame and stuff. But now he's having to deal with the fact that he just got cut out from his family of the Jacksons. He's not a real Jackson. So he's having to deal with that. Now, Diana's there at that time, and they're working it and stuff, but he's having to deal with the relationship of Diana wanting to come back, and she's showing him all this affection because she's longing for the lost child that she gave away. And that's what happens when you see with Diana, when they first encounter. This is all documented. That's why I'm telling you that I can prove this shit. It's so proven. When you actually see the real story, you'll see that my story lines up exactly with every single date and piece of evidence perfectly. And you'll actually see, you'll see it. This is what it's all about, and it's blatantly obvious because my story just lines up. Bam, 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 bam. Not only does it line up, I'm explaining to you all what actually we have all been seeing and so Diana then, at that time, she tells Michael has to live with it. That's how Michael's development leads to where he becomes the person he is. Now, I'm not going to get into all the explanation of that. What I'm just going to say here now is this is the thing about what I tell people, is that think about every conspiracy and everything about what you think you understand in this life, okay? Like, just talk about, like, okay, Is there a Satan? Okay, well, prove it to me, actually. Okay, is there a Jesus? Well, prove it to me. And where is he actually? Have you seen him? Like, you can say, oh, no, I see him. And no, well, I'm talking about proof. I want to talk to this guy, Jesus coming, and the Satan speaking, I'm Satan, okay, and like all the hardest, like the aliens. Have we seen the aliens come down out and say, here we are, we're the aliens, Like, all of this stuff of what you're saying and all the conspiracy, like the JFK, who killed JFK? Meow, everybody has ideas, but has it actually been 100% proven? And Oswald's dead, so that part of the proof is dead right there. And then, what about the 9/11 and any conspiracy you can think of, any single one? I'm asking every single person out there, think about whatever conspiracy out there that's ever out there that you've wanted to actually know the real truth and prove it and everything. This conspiracy of what I'm talking about, Berry Gordy's alive. Diana Ross is alive. Smokey Robinson is alive. It's those three first individuals. When Diana Ross got pregnant with Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy had to come in and orchestrate, how are we going to handle this situation? Those three individuals are the first three original individuals that did everything. And they're all alive. And it's like I just constantly am begging and trying to get people. It's like, you need to understand the opportunity of what we have as a human race, that we can get these three people to tell the actual real story of how it all happened in the beginning, and there is no more conspiracy. This can be proven with the hardest facts, with the real people who actually are the ones who did everything. They're alive, and all I need is for people to start shouting the way I'm shouting that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's mother. As soon as people start shouting it, it is gonna fucking break this story. Boom, it will fucking collapse on them. And we're gonna fucking hear the truth. It's gonna be a reality fucking for all of us. It's going to be a healing to the fucking human race that nobody had an idea that was right here upon us and ready to be fucking delivered upon us. It's right here. It's right now. But if any of these people die, we lose a massive piece. Any one of them. We've got the three key players who did this right in the beginning. It was those three. Those are the three that we need. Berry Gordy, Diana Ross, Smokey Robinson, those three. Those are the ones. And I keep saying, this needs to be done while they're alive. It'll be a fucking freedom will reign on our fucking people forever if you guys just start screaming, we know Diana Ross is Michael's mom. We want the truth to come out now. This proves everything. This is